What do you do when CNBC reports that 20% foreclosures are up year over year? What do you do when home prices are at their peaks and they're just starting to come down a little bit? What do you do when interest rates have been staying relatively high? What do you do when gold is on its way up, Bitcoin's on its way down, and it looks like surely these are signs of a recession? What do you do when there is so much rain that you feel like your home isn't just financially underwater, but physically as well? We're going to get into all the glory of home ownership in this video right now. If you're living in Ventura County or considering moving here, and you're paying attention to these signs of this looming recession that just seems to be getting pushed back and back and back, like some home repairs that didn't get done in time, you're going to want to see this. Boom, 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 boom. Some changes, some music. Skiddy-doo-doo, skiddy-doo-doo. All right, so I'm totally embracing the look. Yes, we have had rain in California. And honestly, like it's treacherous. It's not something to laugh at. Car accidents are up. People are being evacuated. There's potential cause for mudslide or potential concerns for mudslides. Everybody's roof, including my own, everybody's calling me, who's the roofer? Who can get this done? Going through a drought. I mean, pretty much from 2010 to 20, there weren't a lot of rainy years or seasons. And we had a few back, I think 2022 and 24. 25 wasn't that bad. But this tail end of 25 is the start of this winter. It's already starting out hot. We got that big one in October that took us for a run. And when I talk about rain, like it's coming down so powerfully at a frequency that is so high, like 4 or 5 inches in a day. And it's really putting everything to the test. Windows to the test, stucco, your siding, even porch. I think our porch might have seepage coming into the house. We're trying to figure this stuff out. It's not fun. It's probably my least favorite year of homeownership in 10 years. As far as we're going to do some renos, we're going to do some things, and it's the can of worms, if you guys saw that one. But it's real. I've got other people calling me, well, we did this garage conversion, I'm like, well, get a tarp on it, do something. Well, we don't want to fall through the roof. I'm like, I don't want you to fall through the roof either, but get the professionals on it. Learn the hard way that when it comes to these roofs, you guys, you've got to pay for the licensing. You've got to pay for the top dollar one, and here's why. You get what you pay for, and it's the material costs. So the roofer can re-roof. They can go over the old one, which may or may not take. And in some of these cases, we should have just done that, because when we pulled it back and demoed it back, there was 3 layers stacked up in one. Then there was this super layer underneath it. I don't think anything was getting through that. So I think the majority of the roof probably would have been fine. But it's those corners and the deflection points, scuppers, the ramps. If there's any pooling at all, the water's going to seep in. And you've got to have folding and metal and mesh, and there's so much that goes into it. And then the material costs, so going back into that, so they might pay, just for so much of your roll off or your torch down. But if you have to do special types of folds where you're going to come up half, so that you want the fabric to come up more of that cripple wall that's there, if you don't, and they come down to the seam where the corner is, you're going to have issues there. But that's a material cost. So they can get it done, and it can look great. It'll look good. It'll look like it works, but it doesn't. So you're going to pay for a whole bunch of extra sheets so they can cut them the right way, so that they fold over the correct way, so that as the water falls, it's not pulling back under those seams. And there's a lot to it. They're using mastic. There's that other brand, with a white type of urethane look. There's a lot of things that go into it to get these seals. And luckily for us, we had our leak, and we did some damage control and pulled out the drywall. So now we can pinpoint where these leaks are, and we can see like, okay, this is where it's coming in at, and this is what has to be done. But imagine if your drywall's up, or if you're in the Spanish, stucco style home on the outside, and then you've got your lath and plaster on the inside, or both. What happens is those are absorbent, and the wood's absorbent, so it's not necessarily going to transfer the other side of the wall. It's not going to, you don't have insulation, so a lot of times it would bleed through the insulation and go through drywall, and then you'd have a reading. Okay, there it is. But you're not going to get that in these older homes. So things can go unnoticed for a very long time, which is really unfortunate. So as far as underwater, the homes are having drainage issues, roof leaks, serious stuff, and in some cases even mudslides or fear of mudslides. Like these big crazy rains, like anyone living on the west end with that hill right there by Cedar Place, Rose Valley in Ojai, that got evacuated, and it's the real deal. It sounds like, oh, it's just a little bit, it's just rain. It's not just rain. It's the quantity and the velocity of the rain coming down at once, and it's happening for whatever reason, be it climate change, be it seeding. Like it's here. Like this is a part of it. So it isn't just these fires, but flood insurance, all insurances, and the insurance companies are so slow and they're so inundated. And even pre-fires, I was talking to ServPro and some of these guys, and it's actually post-COVID. So since COVID, they've really been pulling back, and they have these systems. He says it's taking anywhere from a month to 6 months just to get started on the claim, just to get the ball rolling. Not even talking about doing the renovation and getting the build back. My folks had one. It was like 3 or 4 months for them, and it was just a faucet pipe leak. But with everything, all the damage that it caused, like that's how long it took. Other people getting flooded out of their house. I know some folks who did get flooded out due to a diversion of county, let's say a culvert. The disbursement of how water flow would go flooded them out. It was 2 years and counting, probably 2.5 years till anything happened to get any sort of remedy. So that whole time you're getting a little bit of help from FEMA, but not much. And it's really hard to make ends meet, and you're kind of leaning towards, what direction you can go. So weather-wise, yeah, the flooding is real. Being under this water is like, it's putting a thumb on us. So that's something to be respected. Now, when it comes to the housing market financially, we've got two schools of thought. One, and we'll start with the good news. So the good news is that we are at one of our strongest home ownership bases, meaning that it's the highest percentage of homeowners we've ever had. I think it's 67, 68 homeowners. The rest would be mostly mom and pop type of rental owners, and then a small percentage of institutional hedge fund, which they get a lot of the slack, but really they're a very small minority in that. But our numbers are really huge for homeowners. Of that, 40% of those homeowners own their homes outright. That's not a 2008 financial crash. Let's dump. However, don't click out real quick, because there's two caveats. There's two schools of thought. There's the people who have paid down a lot of equity. There's people who got in at good pricing. There's people that have really lower interest rates. And there's people that are kind of on the cusp during this COVID time that also got good interest rates. But then there's the last couple of years. So you've got the last couple of years where people paid high prices, high interest rates, and then you have inflation turns, so your cost of living goes up, insurance goes up, taxes go up. We're starting to have these issues with covered California, Obamacare, the subsidies. There was a government shutdown that had to do with that. So that's having an influence in making costs of living go up, but it's also having an influence in the delay of the CPI report, the JOLTS report that the Fed would need to then lower these interest rates. So as we're anticipating this lowering interest rate keeps getting baked into sour bread, if you will, as it prolongs, every year it prolongs. I feel like this is a third winter. We get towards, well, we thought it was going to happen this year, and it still hasn't happened yet. the longer it pushes and the longer it goes, the more kind of pain it creates. And I feel like the more likely it's going to tip the other way. So it feels like what we're going to get is we're going to get a slow data from the Fed, which would mean a slow reaction to what they would be doing in cutting. And these rates are probably going to stay where they are for another 3 to 6 months before anything really significant happens. And it'll probably just be tiny incremental cuts, unless there's some really bad news, some really good bad news to cut these rates. But that good bad news would be bad enough, like businesses closing down, jobs cutting. We heard Ojai Valley said 1,700 jobs are going to get cut. So we have like minimum wage going up, and we have all these benefits that employers are supposed to pay for. There's a certain point where the amount of money coming in is less than the money going out, and that's right about when businesses tend to cut or close up shop. And I feel like nationally we're there. California, we surely are there. And the big speculation is, what's going to happen? Are we going to have that fiat currency of printing money, the monetary policy, that whole narrative of here's the government to save the day, and we go back into that money printing, and then you'll see a bunch of people buy into Bitcoin. We'll see a bunch of people rush back into real estate. We'll see people rush into assets. Or are we going to stay on a deflationary track where they don't do those cuts? They say, hey, you know what? We're going to need to stay here, and the suffering is going to happen, and that's going to be in home values going down, potentially businesses, closing up, and jobs getting cut. And that's not a healthy or exciting environment, but it is a reset. It is a recession. We're probably already in it. There's enough evidence to decide. Most people are saying it's a 50-50 ball, not a 6-7 ball, but a 50-50 ball. It could go either way, and I feel like once it goes the direction it's just gonna go that way. So fingers crossed, if the Fed starts to do some serious cuts, and I think it'd have to be 50 before Christmas, 50 before the holidays. They might not even do the 25. But if they don't do the 25, or they only do 25, we get into January, February, and they get that late data that they needed, we might see the cuts come. And at that point, if they're big enough, because real estate's a different world, it's not the larger economy, you can have a sinking economy, but if you have the cuts to stimulate those areas, you might have enough of a frenzy to kind of level out and have a soft landing in real estate. Or we could see real estate continue to go up 1-2%, which is basically flat for the next couple of years while we're having a recession. I don't really think that we're going to see that big dip, because again, we have that base of the solvent homeowners, that big 67-68% of homeowners who aren't in trouble, and then the 40% who own outright. It's not despair. You've got a few people who moved during COVID who maybe they made the wrong move, they weren't excited about, they felt pressured because there was no other inventory, there's no other choices, and they might not be happy in the house, and they want to move to another home in that neighborhood, or they want to move back to where they came from. I was doing an open in Camarillo, and we had people moving back to the 805 from Michigan. We had some people coming from like Salt Lake City. So it was very interesting to hear and see how people are moving back to California as people had moved away. It is the best weather, ironically, in this video. It's the best weather. We did have beautiful sunsets both evenings, but this water is something else. So the rain, when it comes to the roofs, you got to have the good roofer, and you got to pay for the best roofers, and you got to pay for the materials. Even if you're going to work something out where you're paying for the materials, you want to get extra materials and let them know, yeah, I'll get extra materials. I'll pay you extra hours. We want to do this roof the best we possibly can, because that's just going to protect your investment. When it comes to other drainage issues, such as Ojai, anywhere with the hillsides, those hills are getting filled with water. They're basically like a mountain is like a balloon of water, and it's just going to percolate and seep out. So if you have a home that's on the edge of a hill, where part of it is has retaining walls underneath it, and you've got this foundation structure, some of it's built into rock, but you've got certain areas that need sump pumps. They need to have water pumped out from underneath the homes, but there's just constant drainage, or it's just people's yards just getting sideswiped by, you know, what would be rivers. So really pay attention to that stuff, especially in the purchasing. I remember we were working with some clients in Oakview, and I was like, okay, well, look around. You see these giant river rocks. Like, how did they get there? You know, it's like there's a river not that far from here, and we're just up a little bit from that. You know, so in a torrential rain, you could have these boulders coming through your yard. You could have, you know, your home could be compromised. So there's certain areas you just want to pay attention and use a little bit of what we'd call common sense, because sometimes we get such tunnel vision when we're looking at that one house. But really look around at the environment. My big theme these last couple of years is the geology of real estate, really looking at, you know, what makes something special. We had that property in Hermitage, and the valleys of the east to west and the north to south and how it intersected there, that was what I call magic, because you have elements going the opposite direction, you know, creating this energy and vortex, and that's something really special. Same thing with our listing on Königstein in the Upper Ojai, had that very unique water creek going through it. And it's just really special sometimes when you're paying attention to those things. If you're not, you could be on the devastating side of those things, which you don't want to have happen. So for this video, to conclude this video, we're really looking at, are we underwater financially? We're at a precipice. We're probably going to flatline in real estate, but I do think the economy is going to have a strain. We've got the signs. People are buying into gold. They're skipping Bitcoin. And why that's important is because, well, Bitcoin was supposed to be that new hot thing. It's kind of been bought out. The big whales who've been in it for 10 years, they're the ones who are selling, they're cashing in. So everyone's kind of waiting, well, who's the next buyer? Who's the next buyer? Well, a lot of folks, they know gold is going to be solid when we end to those recessionary times. So that's a safe place. Gold is where you want to park the cash while other things may fall, and then reinvest into them after that happens. So if we have any sort of like crash or reset, it's going to show itself pretty soon, and it's going to happen when we have these 2 or 3 quarters in a row, which really means the data from September, October, November, and even December. Those are really important months. Those are good spending months with the holidays. It's like we're going to see that data hit, and that might not hit till January, February. So during that time, January, February, and March, I think is going to be very telling on whether we get those cuts or not. If we don't get those cuts, these prices are coming down. They've been coming down incrementally, even in a great environment like this. Our base, our 1.2, our 800,000 to 1.2 is very good right now. There's even properties at like 525, 550 that are having trouble selling. And while those numbers were cooking and moving during 2025, luxury market already got hit, 24 and 25. We're going to see the middle get hit too. And the only thing that can really bail it out is interest rates. And if that's delayed data due to the government shutdown, it's going to be delayed data, and it's only going to get worse these next couple of months as it continues to kind of creep in. So we'll see if they can react, if they can get any sort of inkling to, okay, we need to cut a little faster, and we might have that soft landing. So I think, to conclude again, I really think that the economy is going to see a reset. Housing prices may not go so negative, especially here in Ventura County. I really don't see them going so negative. I think we see them coming down a little bit, but I still think the demand and the liquidity is there, because it's really just people trading places. So if it gets any better than it is, rates coming down a little bit, home prices coming up, there's people who are just going to be able to basically pay cash, you know, for those.